Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this beautiful November morning. It wasn't quite so beautiful the last meeting, but looks like the sun's trying to come out here in the beautiful Comox Valley. Just for the gallery's benefit, few housekeeping items. There's fire exits here and here, should there be and also, of course, where you came in out that door. As well, the washrooms are located around the back. You go down the hall and turn right. If there is an emergency, we all muster up on the parking lot out front. That being said, I'm now going to welcome everyone and acknowledge the fact that we are conducting our business today on the beautiful unceded territory of our Comox First Nation people. We have a couple of delegations today. Oh, I'm sorry. Director Hardy.
Thanks, Chair. Before we get started in our delegations and our very important business with the Comox Valley Regional District, as you can see, I'm wearing an orange shirt today in memory of a great Canadian that passed this morning, Senator Murray St. Clair, the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He did pass this morning, so I just thought, out of recognition, if we could maybe just stand if we can and have a moment of silence for Murray St. Clair, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Director, for that. Never underestimate what one individual can do. Change the world. At least our world. Okay, we're going to move into delegations, and we have a sequel to last month's EASC meeting. We have Catherine Davison and Suzanne Sawyer here from the Macaulay Road and Area Neighborhood Association, and they're going to present on the request for completion of the One Spot Trail North to Ham Road to be used as an emergency exit before the 2025 fire season. And they've got some new information to offer us this month. Catherine, if you just press the button, I'll...
Good. Okay.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Catherine Davidson. I'm one of the directors of the Macaulay Road and Area Neighborhood Association. Suzanne Sawyer, our chair, is here today, as well as Kim Stubblefield, one of our other directors. And yes, we were here at last month's meeting. Oops. Okay. Yeah, today we will present a short summary of our October 7th presentation, a summary of the petition on the One Spot Trail North connection to Ham Road, and we will address the EASC motion of October 7th and our ask of the directors. So Marana is a registered not-for-profit. These are our purposes. And on October 7th, we described our area, our background, and our work on road safety initiatives. This was as an introduction to Director Hardy, and Director Arbor remembered our two previous presentations, and we are located in Director Greaves' electoral area C. This is the CVRD map from 2019 showing our area population density. As you know, there's limited access to this area. The lack of access is a huge concern if our road is blocked and residents or emergency vehicles can't get in or out. We have a huge public safety issue, as we could all be trapped if the fast-moving wildfire moves through our forested areas into our residential subdivisions. We have an unknown number of people living illegally in unregulated RV parks, and there are areas that lack adequate water resources. We are aware that road building opportunities are identified through a subdivision process and that these initiatives originate with the CVRD with regard to zoning and planning. MOTI reviews recommendations of the CVRD, and MOTI has stated that they support the CVRD planning purposes. In one of our previous presentations, we asked that a feasibility study be done to identify alternate road access. The CVRD announced a joint planning committee to develop a feasibility study for our area in 2022. Marana wrote to the CVRD and asked to be able to provide input to the terms of reference and to act as a resource for this joint planning committee. We were told that MOTI had signed the terms of reference, but the contract to manage the committee was not realized. And then the CVRD staff reported to the EASC September 22 meeting that this project should be under MOTI's purview. So our access issues have simply been bounced back and forth between MOTI and the CVRD for years. In April of 2023, Marana convened a meeting with the Vancouver Island MOTI Director, Michael Pearson. MOTI staff and Director Edwin Grieve attended. MOTI suggested the One Spot Trail North completion would provide access to Ham Road and that the active transportation funding could be available. So that is a brief summary of some of our processes to date, and Marana's efforts are now focused in realizing the completion of the One Spot Trail North for access to Ham Road. Okay. So this is, now we'll do a summary of our petition on the One Spot North Trail connection. We offered an online form on our website, and we had people signing in person at our events. This statement read, I am signing this petition in support of the connection of the One Spot Trail North to Ham Road, both as a trail connector to other trails in the Black Creek area and for use if required as an emergency evacuation route for residents living in the area. We had 207 people signing our petition. That was online and in person with their names and contact information. That was since April of this year. There were 76 signatories who took the time to provide written comments online. The comments have been unanimous in expressing their support for the completion of the trail and the ability to use it in an emergency situation. Many expressed their frustration and the lack of action in completing the trail. And if directors would like copies of these comments, we will provide them to you. Yeah, we do have the comments here, but it was suggested that in the interest of safekeeping regarding the collection and sharing of personal information, we just provide the summary. Okay. Now I wish to address the EASC motions. So we did make a presentation in the October 7th meeting, and the motion related to our presentation is displayed. I'd taken a screenshot of the motion from the video recording. So that was the motion the directors voted on that date. So we were surprised and concerned about the revised motion that went to the CVRD board meeting as minutes from this EASC meeting. The motion dropped the November date and suggested that staff prepare a report for a future meeting. When this was questioned, we were informed that the dialogue by the directors did not appear to indicate that such a time frame was actually specified. But after Marana's presentation on October 7th, which is documented by the video, clearly Director Aubrey suggests give staff a month to do a report, indicating the report was expected in November. Then under the new business section of the meeting, Chair Edwin Grieve asked for the motion to be displayed on the screen, and directors voted on the motions as written. Then Director Grieve announced it's official with the November report date showing on the screen. So the rewritten motion, which is available up there from the minutes that went to the October 22nd board meeting, suggest a report for a future electoral area services committee. It causes a great deal of concern that the motion could be lost and a staff report not provided in a timely manner. So Miranda asks that the original motion stand. We've noticed that the resolution report, the resolution status report attached to this agenda meeting suggests a report on the One Spot North Trail completion is anticipated for the December meeting. Anticipated doesn't give us much confidence that it will. Also, Parks has informed that the trail is not built to road standards for an evacuation route. Miranda had suggested public trail use and as an emergency exit if required. The October 22nd rewritten motion suggests for use as an emergency evacuation route, and we would not want that phrasing to hold up plans. In an emergency situation, this public trail would be a better alternative and a shorter distance to walk out on than walking through the private hayfields to get to Ham Road, which our present evacuation routes suggest. Most importantly, we see the need for a motion from directors that direct staff to complete the processes for the One Spot North Trail completion in 2025. So our ask of the directors that the October 7th EASC meeting minutes be amended to show the accurate motion recorded during the meeting on that date. We understand there may be minor changes for grammar, but any changes should not have included a change in the date of the expected report. And I've looked at the CVRD bylaws, and they include that no actions on a delegation request should be made at a board or committee meeting until the next regular meeting. But it also allows that under extraordinary circumstances, the committee may consider the request immediately by a 2/3 vote. Since we are here today at the November EASC meeting, we don't believe the directors need to wait another month for a staff report. Miranda considers this request an immediate priority, and we ask directors to vote today on a motion. The motion is to complete the processes for the One Spot North Trail connection to Ham Road in 2025. So we need certainty and an established process, and the process must be started now before the next fire season. And we have drafted a motion that the completion of the One Spot Trail North is a top priority and a necessary safety exception, and that staff are directed to complete the processes for the One Spot North Trail connection to Ham Road in 2025. So thank you. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. I ask if any of the directors have any questions for Catherine or the group. I don't see it. Oh, we have one. Director Arbor. You get him?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to the delegation for coming back. And I think they're correct that the intent was to look at November. I'm just wondering if, to what extent staff can report back right now on how that motion was not logged in as stated, but more importantly, whether they have any update at this public meeting for the work that's ongoing, I assume, on this issue.
Thanks for the question, Director, and so to the committee members. The minutes from meetings are formed based on both the recording, but also the notes that are taken. And as I was going through my notes, I did not record myself the specific November reference. I'm also very mindful of the work plan that is in front of the staff in preparing these materials, and so the resolution that was included in the minutes, as noted here today, did not include the specific November date. It does talk to a future EASC meeting, and that's what we are aiming for and planning to have a report on these matters at the December meeting. That provides enough time for staff to provide a a fulsome enough, in our opinion anyways, a fulsome enough response to the questions that are being asked. And I think as noted in response back to Catherine through email correspondence, the explanation was given that the motion is as it is written in the minutes, and the board, in receiving the minutes, consider that. Certainly the committee can take or provide direction here today if you want to reflect a change. But I can say that we are working on a report that will respond to the delegation's questions, and we're anticipating that that would be available for the December meeting. We understand the urgency from the delegation's perspective. We understand Marana's interests around this, and so we're looking to provide that report to give some confidence to the questions that have been raised and identify the work plan that is in front of us and some of the challenges or some of the responsibilities that are in front of us to be able to respond.
Okay, can I have a quick follow-up, Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I understand, like, it's good that the delegation is applying pressure because this whole issue has been dragging on for a long time. In terms of reporting back today, you know, without a report or anything like that, I find it very hard for myself to try to take any further action because we would just be basing it on you know, nothing to look at basically at this current time. So but maybe if we need to go back, because our CEO just said that the anticipation is for December, maybe I'd like to firm that up and this time to nail it down that we will get a public report at the December meeting. I think that we do want to act on this, and I think what was very clear at the meeting is that there's overwhelming support from the three directors to move forward on this issue. So on those occasions where there's unanimous consent around trying to move that forward, you know, I think we should firm up the December date, and I understand that we do have some staff capacity issues right now, but at the same time, I think what's being asked is we should be able, in my opinion, to make room for that piece of work, and it sounds like it's already underway. But just for that so that we don't see the delegation again in December, I think I would like maybe under new business to just firm up that December public report.
Any other questions? Oh, Catherine?
Yeah, can I respond? You're okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm concerned about the change motions, and you know, I would like that to be amended because these meetings are recorded, they're public meetings, and if there was a concern about the date, then perhaps they could have looked at the recording to ensure that it was correct. I think onus is on the CVRD staff that the meeting minutes are recorded appropriately. And yes, we have been waiting for a long time, and I do appreciate Director Arbor's concern for this. And yes, I would hope that then you would vote that this report comes to the December meeting. Again, we've had experience in the past where a lot of these things take a very long time to proceed, and we're very concerned about the time frame about this to make sure that it gets in process for the next year and the next fire season. Okay.
So no other questions? Yeah, I again, I try to assure this organization that we are very serious about moving forward on this. I tried to stress that over the last couple of meetings at the AGM and our public meet and greet. So we can bring a report back. It may not be that substantive because there's too many things in the works right now, but I do assure you that there is some very promising possibilities that should be able to be reported out soon, whether December or whether it's going to be February, I'm not sure. But as you probably know, the processes of government are very laborious, take a long time. But I do assure you, whether or not I have any credibility left, but I do say that the board is very much behind this, or the committee is very much behind this, and we're exploring a lot of different opportunities at the present time. Again, we may not be able to divulge those because anything to do with purchase of land or legal issues or labor relations is strictly an in-camera matter. So I'd like to thank you very much.
I see Director Bryson's.
Director Arbor, sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, and I think it's the first time that we get a public group in my 6 years anyways. I don't know for you, Chair Grieve, but I think I also want to acknowledge that if best practice would be that when we have a motion that we take the time to write it on the board, that is what ends up in the minute, even though there's verbal things. I'm guilty. I mean, I think we're all guilty of it at times to rush through the motion process, but I think generally speaking, this is a good reminder for us to take the time to assure that our motions are, when we do take the time to put them out on the board, that we pause and really think about it and make sure that stays consistent. And for that reason, I think I don't have a problem when the minutes come up for that meeting to make that amendment to the motion. At the end of the day, we're not getting the report today, but I think it's just acknowledging that we should always strive to be accurate. And I'll put myself in that basket too. I don't think that when the motion came back at the board or even at the meeting, that I made a fuss about it. So I appreciate the feedback from the delegation on that.
Thank you very much. And that point well taken, Director Arbor. And thank you very much for coming back one more time. Hopefully we'll have the appropriate outcome soon. And we have another delegation, the McLaughlin Garden Society. We have Margaret McLaughlin and Eva Marie Trabell. Is that right? Hi. And we don't have the other person, just the two of you. Well, that's just fine. So welcome.
Great. Good morning. Morning, everyone. My name is Margot McLaughlin. How is the sound? It's okay. I'm here on behalf of McLaughlin Garden Society to follow up on a grant application we made recently to request funding to host a writer in residence in the summer of 2025. So for those of you who haven't been out to the McLaughlin Gardens, it's located at the Brian and Sarah, or Sarah and Brian McLaughlin Park, which is an 11-acre, pedestrian-only, seaside regional park on Tasman Road, which is located a short walk from the Eagles Greenway, a linear park the CVRD put in a few years ago that links Tasman Road with Eagles Drive. And for those of you who are cyclists or walkers, it's now become a very popular route, cycling route, a loop going down Coleman Road, Left Road, and down to Eagles Drive. So one of the main inspirations for the McLaughlin Gardens is to, we're modeling our program a little bit on the Haig Brown House in Campbell River, which is operated by the Campbell River Museum, where they have a writer in residence in the winter months. So the mission of the McLaughlin Gardens is to nurture the transformative power of art, nature, and story in creating a more just, sustainable, and equitable world. And like the writers who come to the Haig Brown House, McLaughlin Gardens has deliberately invited writers with an interest in place and in nurturing a connection to place, with the understanding that when we care about a place, we are more likely to become stewards of that place. So we've had amazing writers over the years, poets from Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, a playwright from Vancouver, poets from Victoria. And when my parents built their home in the mid-70s, they were expressing their own creativity and creating beautiful gardens, stone walls and stone walkways. And now their home is the site of literary creation. The Comox Valley Art Gallery also hosts visual artists there in May and June. So why invest in the arts? And I think we have discovered through the pandemic and through other issues and periods in history how the arts help build social cohesion and support conflict resolution through developing cognitive, emotional, and social skills for constructive engagement with conflict, and by supporting empathy, trust, and social engagement, collaboration, and transformative learning, thereby producing more cooperative relationships. So the World Health Organization has created a remarkable series of databases where research has been gathered to show the value and importance of the arts. So here in the corner, you see a photo of a local artist, Muriel Mark, who was at the Gardens in 2023. And she's originally from France, but she shared with me that she had not spent an entire day alone in 6 years because of raising her son. And her delight in being there was just wonderful to witness. So this is another quote from the World Health Organization regarding mental illness and how activities such as choir singing, art making, expressive writing, and group drumming reduces mental distress, depression, and anxiety while simultaneously enhancing individual and social well-being. So the arts have a tremendous role to play in our community and our community well-being. So since 2016, when we established our program, we've hosted writers in every year except 2017. And this past summer, we had a returning writer. But other than that, we've had workshops, public readings, and consultations offered by Canadian writers, attended by over 600 local community members who've come to have their work reviewed in a consultation, who've attended readings or participated in a workshop. Arlene Perret, wonderful Victoria poet, winner of the Governor General's Award. Malia Acker, professor of geography, poet and essayist. In the photo on the right, we are looking at the field journals people were working on that day. So again, this is an activity designed to create a connection to place through close seeing, listening, and being in a particular environment. Marcus Youssef, prolific writer and playwright. He had a long list of projects that he was working on and accomplished many of them. He gave a public reading at Puntledge Park in the summer of 2020, which was well attended, speaking about the role of theater in community building. And then we had in 2022, artist Marlene Creates with her partner Don Mackay, who spoke to a packed house at the Comox Valley Art Gallery. One of Don's poems was inspired by his time at McLaughlin Gardens. At the end of June, the Swainson's thrush, if any of you have been down there or in the woods nearby, the Swainson's thrush is giving out its long spiraling call at that time. And Don wrote a song for the song of the Swainson's thrush. We had Daryl McLeod, who is a Cree descent, and he was in residence in August of that same year. He gave 2 workshops on memoir writing, as well as a reading at Comox First Nations. Unfortunately, we learned recently that he died at the end of August, but the novel he was working on recently won the Ethel Wilson Fiction Prize, one of the BC Book Prizes. Sarah Cassidy was in residence last year and gave a wonderful workshop on the poetry of writing for children. Yvonne Blomer gave a workshop in the shed, which we call the studio, the shed, and her workshop was called Ecopoetics, Responding to Place. So it is a magnificent location with much to be appreciated in terms of how the environment has been built up or enhanced by Sarah McLaughlin's stone patios and stone steps, and the planting of her gardens. We also have a complementary program, which is our studio residency program, which we initiated in 2020. And since then, we have steadily every year offered more residencies to local artists and writers, as well as those from farther afield. This year, we had 7 collectives, so the house can accommodate up to 4 individuals. And this year, we had several collectives who came, and a total of 29 writers and artists who were able to spend a week at the gardens, diving deep into their creative practice. One of them was Amy Crook, Courtney fabric artist. She returned the following year with her mother. They worked on an intergenerational quilt. Sandy Waters, who came back with her collective. Marcus Youssef returned. He was working on a stage adaptation of the novel Brave New World for performance at the Stratford Festival in a coming season. So we have many collaborating partners, including the CVRD, who are right there from the beginning. We very much have appreciated their support, encouragement, and guidance, and the Comox Valley Art Gallery. We have a lease agreement with the CVRD and a letter of agreement with the Comox Valley Art Gallery. We've also received support from the Federation of BC Writers and the CV Writers Society. Past supporters have included the BC Arts Council, Peninsula Co-op, North Island College, and Vancouver Island Regional Library. So we're very much interested in building connections and relationships in the community. I recently spoke at the Brant Hermitage Society AGM, and we're just appreciating forming connections. So here's a photo of one of our board members who was our artist in residence 2 summers ago. He was with his fellow artists, Brenda and Tom, and they are now holding a show, an exhibit of their work. I hope you can get out to Comox to see it at the Pearl Ellis Gallery. And there's an interior shot of the cottage and a view to the well corner in the spring and in the fall. So it's quite a magical place, and every writer who's there gives us very extensive appreciations. We have volunteers and replace the deck for us. So thank you very much for your attention this morning, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm not sure about the rest of the committee, but I can feel peace and tranquility just radiating from the slides. Lovely, fantastic. Any comments from directors? Oh, Eva, you want to say something? Oh, yeah, there's got to be an ask.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning that our grant application, and this is in reference to our grant application, which is to host a children's author in the summer of 2025. So we have a roster of different genres, literary genres, and we want to give a substantial residency to a children's author, recognizing that the Comox Valley is home to many writers. I think the Comox Valley Writers Society has over 150 members, many of whom are writing for children. I see that Director Arbor has a question.
Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. Really great presentation. I've actually walked by the facility, I guess maybe 2 years ago, around the time where the CVRD helped acquire the property just south of you, which we're still undergoing planning around. But that is a beautiful location and very inspiring. I went down to the beach, and it's just such a serene environment. So I want to thank, I guess, your family. I am sorry if I didn't catch that, but I'm pretty sure that came from your family. So, for the leadership in setting up a place like this, it's a real treasure for the valley. And it's not super often either that we get. Oh, sorry. Is there echo, or you can still hear me?
You're cutting in and out a little bit, but you can still understand.
Okay. I was just showing appreciation, and lastly, I would say it's nice to have one of the applicants, come in and talk about their applications. We've changed the process this year to do it at a different time of year, which is a bit more relaxed, I think, than usually when we try to do it a little bit later following budget. So I'll look forward to review the application with the rest of the committee when it comes up, and it's really great to have that background today. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think we all share that sentiment, and certainly we appreciated this very much, as I also appreciated your presentation at the Father Brant Association AGM. That was lovely. So once again, thanks so much, and look forward to reviewing your application at our next meeting.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. So, into the crux of the matter, resolution status report for receipt.
I'll move it.
I'll second it. No, seconded. Any discussion on it? Then I'll ask the question. Anyone opposed? That carries. We have advisory planning commission minutes from area A from October 7, agricultural advisory planning from October 10th, and area B advisory planning from October 22nd. A motion to receive them concurrently.
I'll move.
And I see a nod from Daniel. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, ask the question. Anyone opposed? That carries as well. Now, electoral area B development variance permit DV 2B 24561 Andrew Avenue. Report October 30th for receipt.
I'll move it.
Seconded. Okay, over to CAO for introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Stephanie Pollock, our planner, will be introducing the staff report on site-specific floodplain setback for 561 Andrew Avenue. And there's a related companion report, number 3, which is around the development variance permit. Stephanie, you'll tackle the first one first, the site-specific floodplain setback report now. So Stephanie, over to you.
Press the button. There you go.
Thank you. I'll first just invite the property owner and applicant Colleen Dunsmore to join us at the table. Through the CAO to the chair and directors, an application has been received to consider a development variance permit application to reduce the side yard setback of an existing single detached dwelling from 1.75 meters to 1.58 meters. The 0.11 hectare lot is zoned residential 1. Lots within the R1 zone are permitted to construct a principal structure with a minimum side yard setback of 1.75 meters. Existing development includes a single detached dwelling for which the variance is proposed and a shed. The siting of the structure was never compliant to the side yard setback, and now that the property owner wishes to obtain a building permit for the proposed addition, the applicant opted to apply for a variance. Staff are recommending that the variance be approved as the lesser setback will not likely alter the rural form and character of the area or generate privacy concerns to or from the property. Further, the analysis and the recommendations in the engineer report associated with the floodplain exemption request being made today under FR 1B24 confirms that the proposed addition is safe for the intended use. This variance is not as a result of the floodplain recommendations. All adjacent properties within 100 meters of the subject parcel have been notified by a mail of the variance request and have been given the opportunity to provide comment prior to the application going forward to the committee today. 5 responses were received, all in support of the application. The property owner and applicant, Colleen, is in attendance here and available to answer any questions, as am I. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant have anything to add? Okay, very good. Thank you. And any questions from the directors on this report? Ari's online. Director
Yeah.
Hardy. Oh, sorry, Director Arbor.
Yeah, no, thanks. It looks good to me. It's also good to see the a relatively high volume of neighbors' responses as well, and generally in favor. So that's, to me, that's good. Good job with staff. Thanks.
I concur totally. So let's proceed to receive the report. Anyone opposed to receipt? Director?
No, not opposed.
Very good. So that carries. And we need receipt of all this correspondence concurrently, which is how many? 1, 2, 3, 5. And there's no addendum, no late coming. Sounds like you're very popular. Yeah, that helps a bit. Okay. So motion to receive the correspondence, Director Hardy?
I'll move.
Okay. And I see nods from Director Arbor. So any opposed to that? That also carries.
Move to recommendation.
Does anyone in the gallery want to speak to the matter? Anything to add? Very good.
Move
So-
to recommendation.
Recommendations moved and seconded.
Yeah, second.
Any more discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, I'll call a question on it. Anyone opposed? And that carries. Thank you very much. Now we move along to Area B site specific floodplain setback 561 Andrew Avenue, which is pretty much the same. We have a presentation for this too, Stephanie? Okay, over to Stephanie.
Thank you. Through the CAO to the chair and directors, in conjunction with DVP 2B24, an application has been received for the site-specific exemption to the floodplain management bylaw for the property at 561 Andrew Avenue. As described with the development variance permit, proposed is an addition to the existing single detached dwelling. Being within 100 meters of the sea, the applicant hired a professional engineer to prepare a geotechnical report relating to flood hazard per the floodplain management bylaw. The report prescribes a flood construction level of 5.54 meters and establishes that the 2100-year floodplain setback extends beyond almost the entirety of the property, thus requiring an exemption from the bylaw for a setback. The engineer prescribes a lesser minimum floodplain setback for the property of 15 meters from the future natural boundary. This recommended lesser setback is located seaward of the property. The engineer's report concludes that the land is safe for the intended use, provided that the recommendations are followed, including that the new habitable area is above the flood construction level and that the building adheres to the lesser prescribed setback. Staff recommends the exemption because the engineering report will be registered as a covenant against the property and the approach taken is in line with provincial guidelines. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So any questions on that report? Don't see any, so on the report, anyone opposed? That carries. And the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Moving second on the report. And any discussion on that? Once again, I see no discussion, so move right into recommendation. Anyone opposed to the recommendation? And that also carries. Thank you very much. Now, update on the zero carbon step code implementation, a report from October 30th regarding the update on implementation of the provincial zero carbon step code for receipt.
So moved.
Seconded.
And over to CAO.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Our Manager of Building Inspection Services, John Cockford, will be introducing this report, available for questions to follow. So John, over to you.
Welcome, John.
Good morning through the CAO to the chair. This report I'm presenting this morning is an update on the implementation of the provincial zero carbon step code. The zero carbon step code is currently voluntary. Stricter requirements were expected by the province in 2024 and then in 2027 have not yet been announced. Full compliance will be required by 2030 under the BC Building Code. All new homes now require an energy advisor under the updated BC Building Code. Energy advisors are working with property owners and builders to educate on heat pumps and energy efficient heating systems to meet the new cooling requirements in the BC Building Code. Many builds in the regional district are already meeting EL4, the most restrictive step of the zero carbon step code. In 2024, building staff have focused on incorporating updates to the BC Building Code, adopting our new building bylaw, refining processes for permit efficiencies, sharing information on the Comox First Nation Cultural Heritage Investigation Permit, and implementing the new Parks Development Cost Charge. Resources to review options to implement zero carbon step code have been limited. Neither Courtenay nor Comox has adopted the zero carbon step code yet. Coordinated regional approach could promote consistency and shared learning. To this end, staff has ongoing communication with the city and the town's building staff. Staff will report back to the Electoral Area Service Committee with options on phasing and opportunities to partner with neighboring municipalities on implementation of the zero carbon step code in spring 2025. I have confidence in local industry readiness for zero carbon step code adoption, as long as it's well thought out and rolled out effectively. And can take any questions.
Any questions? I see Director Arbor. Director?
Yeah, thanks. It's a pretty general update and a bit of a heads up, I guess. But we had an initial discussion on that a few months ago. I guess, yeah, I think the step code is really positive in terms of getting ourselves to move in concrete ways towards climate mitigation. And I, 2030 is going to come pretty quickly. So I look forward to see the options that are presented to the committee. And I also like that those options may include somewhat of a regional approach. I was just curious that usually when we talk about a regional approach, we make mention of Cumberland, but Cumberland is not once mentioned in the report. So I'm just wondering why that is, that we only talk about Comox and Courtenay. I'm hoping it's not because there's any ill feelings or anything, because of building permit changes in them taking it back in house or anything like that. So I'm just checking to see why Cumberland wasn't included in the report.
That's a bit of an oversight on my part. Cumberland, I talked with the City of Courtenay building manager and the Town of Comox building inspector. I forgot to mention, we also talked with the building inspector who's looking after Cumberland building inspection. So I will definitely reach out to Village of Cumberland.
That's great. Thanks. And I actually wonder, well, I'm also missing another one that just popped in my mind, but I'd be curious to learn if those policies are of interest or apply to in terms of provincial policy to Comox First Nation and their community. So I you know, it might just be good for us to know if they are working in a similar manner or whether they are not currently working on this. So, but yeah, when we use the term regional, I like to think that everybody is being at least consulted or included in the reports. Thank you. And did you say spring 2025? Or
yeah, spring 2025.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so 5 years before 2030. So I mean, for me, it won't surprise the committee. Like, I would love to see level 3, level 4, somewhere in there for us to kickstart. But I do have some concerns about new natural gas infrastructure main lines that are being put in the valley, including in Area A. And I know a lot of my residents have corresponded with me asking when we're going to move on zero step code and prevent new homes from being connected and to not add to our carbon footprint. And I did appreciate that the report highlighted that currently it's a very, very few, like I think there was 17 homes out of 300 that had a natural gas connection in our building permits. But yeah, so just a bit more feedback since we're on the topic today. I'm hoping that that the region steps up to the plate in meeting the province and its goal, and also showing some leadership around the levels that we pursue. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. We'll see if the any other directors have to something to chime in on. No, we're good. Okay. So as you probably know, Cumberland just had a very successful wood stove festival up there this weekend. So I guess by 2030 they'll have to change the name of that. On that note, sorry folks, we're going to take a vote on receipt of the report. So anybody against? I see none, so that carries. Thank you so much. Nice to have you present, John. And now we go to the Hornby Village Center delegation request, which was a report from October 29 regarding a response to the delegation from August 12th. Elected Area Service Committee requesting to investigate transportation infrastructure improvements on Hornby Island with the Four Corners Village Center for receipt. Move.
Second.
And over to CEO for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark Harrison, our manager of parks, will be introducing this report. And Mark, over to you.
Thank you. Through the chair to the directors. Staff are here to respond to the delegation request that the CVRD investigate transportation and infrastructure improvements on Hornby Island within the Four Corners Village Center. So as the CVRD doesn't have a service nor the jurisdiction over rural roads or over land use planning on Hornby Island, the land use planning on Hornby Island is governed by the Islands Trust, and rural roads and transportation planning is governed by the Ministry of Transportation on Hornby Island. So in that case, we are recommending that that we support this endeavor by supporting Islands Trust and the delegation by sending a letter to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure to encourage action that will implement Hornby's OCP that specifically references MODI working with Islands Trust to improve safety in the Four Corners area. I'm happy to answer questions, and planning staff are here as well to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions of Mark? Director Arbor?
Yeah, thank you. And we had a pretty good delegation from Hornby in August about this topic. I think the report is fine in the sense that the Allen's Trust does have some role in terms of land use planning, as Mark identified. They also have in their OCP myriads of advocacy positions. I think they have like 300 because they don't have a lot of capacity to run other services than land use planning. So they're often just in that advocacy role. And I think at the regional district, we do have that possibility of services. So I think the report was a little bit not passive, but maybe it reflects what I'm hearing is a lack of capacity that we have at the moment around projects, because the report does not mention, for example, that we're just expanding our transit function regionally to include potentially active transportation, and this could be a good candidate for a project or collaboration with MOTI. As the CVRD is aware, much of the trails on Hornby exist because the CVRD stepped into the space and didn't wait, collaborated with Allen's Trust, but didn't wait for Allen's Trust to provide that leadership because they can't actually bring new infrastructure. So maybe in the letter to MOTI, we could include, I would recommend that we include that we have interest in the future to develop a strategy and potentially investment to improve our parkway and roadside trail network. So that's a little bit stronger than just to say to MOTI, go ahead and do something, because we know they won't. I realize that this project is not in our ESC strategic plan right now, but there's a lot of movement heading that way, and I think it would be good to put our minds as to how in the future. We've done so much good work on Denman, and as we conclude some of that work, I think it would be great to look at the possibilities on Hornby and support. We benefit from a volunteer committee that's quite capable and is quite motivated right now, especially with the new upcoming online. So I wonder if staff would be amenable to put a bit more commitment on CVRD in terms of intent for us to be active on the file and not just like advocating.
Thanks. I think you're somewhat correct, Director, in that the role and the authority for the CVRD is it is really focused around the Hornby Parks and Trails, and really we were looking at the opportunity here for Islands Trust and Ministry of Transportation, as noted in the staff report and as Mark mentioned, to pick up that responsibility. And so we're advocating in that sense to Ministry of Transportation and to Islands Trust to pick up that work. We can certainly make reference to the existence of the Hornby Parks and Trails service and some of that interest, but I'm mindful about the work plan and the current task list in front of the CVRD for that particular work. So I wouldn't want to be over-promising or indicating a greater level of involvement or support than what we've got in front of us right now. So it's a bit of a balanced or a nuanced advocacy letter, if you will, in that regard. And I do see that Mark may have his light on to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. If I could just jump in. The other thing that I think we should just clarify is our understanding is really the intent is that they want to look at something that's kind of more comprehensive, like a concept plan for the Four Corners, rather than looking at necessarily improving the roadside trail system. I think they're looking at the Four Corners as a whole and looking how they can look at transportation, but also kind of improving that whole area to make it kind of more amenable and more safe. So staff kind of feels that that's kind of more of a larger land use planning piece where you probably want to do some feasibility studies or transportation studies, which kind of lies outside of the service that we provide to Hornby Island.
Director Arby, you have your hand up still?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. And yeah, sorry to press a bit, but so again, I'll reiterate. I understand why staff is trying to kind of minimize our involvement. Would be the nice way to say it. But at the same time, those projects never happen without the CVRD on the islands, and so you know, and for example, the report does not make reference to the fact that we have a service for feasibility studies on Hornby and for associated with existing services such as the Hornby Parkway service or otherwise that we could actually utilize to contribute some funding if there are studies that need to be funded. I'm not hearing a lot of enthusiasm in terms of, you know, being aggressive, and I know our CEO would just advise, you know, it's not currently in our work plan. But so maybe I'll put you know, a further motion that this gets included into our strategic planning session. And I would write it broadly. I would write, you know, the four corners, but also what we're lacking on Hornby is, and I mentioned that last meeting on Denman, we kind of have a natural active transportation strategy and centered around the Cross Island Trail, but on Hornby, we actually don't have a master plan, and there's further demands on the islands that come up, and Moti just did a bunch of work around Sandpiper a couple of months ago, and this didn't have our involvement, and a lot of residents felt that with CVRD parks and such, like it could have been a better outcome. So maybe I would recommend we read the letter, strengthen it a bit to say that we potentially could have resources to contribute. And if this was prioritized by the committee, you know, whatever language is there. But I just think that leaving Moti to the Islands Trust to figure it out will result in nothing happening. That's my sense and experience. CVRD is an important player in those any conversations around roadways and right of ways and such on the islands. Thank you.
Any other comments? We're just on receipt, so I'll call a question on receipt. Anyone opposed? That carries. Now we're at the recommendation. Director Arby, did you want to add and further that to the recommendation, or what is your intent?
Sorry, I'm just putting it up. The delegation will continue to work with the Islands Trust to implement actions. That delegation and requesting that the ministry continue to work with the Islands Trust and the CVRD to implement actions to address policy 5.8.7. You know, let's keep our name in the game here, so to speak, and not just push it off would be my preferred option. And then later on in the new year, I can bring up, you know, situating that in the strategic plan and see if there's committee appetite or staff resources to do anything in the next few years. This is not like an overnight project, as everyone knows here, but if you look at how we put our attention around Royston, around the school, like we can make things happen when we set our minds to it.
Thank you. And Director Hardy?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to get some clarification from staff regarding the implementation of Hornby Island official community plan. Is that something that the CVRD is regard to do? Like, I'm just kind of wondering, like the city of Courtney has an OCP, Town of Comox has an OCP, and Cumberland have an OCP, and are we required to implement their OCP? And just looking for some clarification and understanding there with regards to the request. Thanks.
The Hornby Island Official Community Plan, it's a document of Islands Trust, who has responsibility for land use planning on Hornby and Denman Island. And so it's not a responsibility of the CVRDs to undertake that work. And I think that we, of course, we will take the direction of the committee in this work. And I think that if we are to include the CVRD in that conversation, we would just really want to be able to manage expectations, both with Islands Trust and the ministry, but also take a look at our own work plans. And there may be some adjustments that have to be made to reflect the priority setting for this work. And that would be then further discussion with the committee down the road. So I appreciate the insertion of CVRD into that conversation, but to manage expectations, I want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what that role is and what that impact would be on the other work that is in front of the CVRD.
So how would you propose wordsmithing that?
I think as Director Arbor noted, just
It's pretty broad.
he suggested including continue to work with the Islands Trust and
So
CVRD.
yeah, okay, so that won't raise any expectations so much, but it does keep a foot in the door. So Director Arbor's nodding. Okay, so then somebody want to move the recommendation with that inserted?
I'll move it, thanks.
Okay.
Do we need to have something in writing on the screen for us to ensure that whatever we stated in the video and whatever comes up in the minutes are consistent with one another, congruent?
Yeah, we have to be very careful with our motions.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. While it's being written, I mentioned I'm looking at the 5.8 Islands Trust, Hornby Island Trust policies, and one of them, just a couple items further down, is that the CVRD is requested to maintain regular transit service to Buckley Bay from the Comox Valley and to expand transit across Denman and Hornby. And this was written in 2014, so I can see we definitely helped meet that policy, which is nice to see.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. It hasn't been seconded, has it?
I was waiting for something to show up on the screen. Yeah, we're good. That's-
Okay, so it's seconded.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Everybody's okay. Okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. From Hornby Island on to Hornby Island. Hornby Island Clinic License of Occupation Report, October 31st, regarding entering into a license of occupation agreement with Island Health and Hornby and Denman Community Healthcare Society for use of the Hornby Clinic by the fire department. Motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Second.
Was seconded, and again, over to CAO for introductions.
Thank you. And our Regional Rural Fire Chief, Bruce Green, will be introducing this report. Bruce, over to you.
Thank you through CAO to the chair and the directors. As you may be aware, Hornby Island is the fire department's in a unique response area in that they do not have an ambulance station on Hornby Island. So any response for BC Ambulance has to come from Denman Island. To further that, they do have a clinic on site on the island that had after hours on-call services by the doctors or a nurse practitioner. But unfortunately, it sounds like those after hours are going to stop or in the process of stopping happening. So which leaves Hornby Island in a precarious position when they go pick up a patient up from an MBA or a house that they have to transport. That patient is going to have to sit in the back of an ambulance that Hornby Island has until BC Ambulance arrives on scene to take over possession of that patient. And those delays, because no after hours BC ferry sailings, could be lengthy and hopefully you've never had to sit in an ambulance on a stretcher, but it's uncomfortable. So what Hornby Island Fire is looking for is to get into this agreement with the clinic that if they do have an after hours patient, they can take that patient to the clinic, put him in a comfortable, dry environment that's safe for the both of patient and the first responders, and wait there until BC Ambulance is able to arrange transportation off the island. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Any questions, directors? Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And thanks, Bruce, for the report and the work on this. And I know I've taken a lot of correspondence on this, especially six months ago or so, and in some meetings. And I want to thank Chief Doc Chinnery for some of his efforts in trying to advocate for this, and as well our past Dr. Alsoon Bryan. There's a lot of people that have been concerned around the change in policy this summer. We even had our MLE Josie Osborne came over, and we've had there's been meetings with her staff to try to see around the future. And I think the long-term outcome that a lot of people are seeking is to actually have an ambulance station, at least for the shoulder season / summer period. We're not there yet. I'm glad that our Emily is back in, because I think that's something that she's happy to advocate for. And I hear that it's not a complete closed door, at least at BC Ambulance and the higher ups that make those decisions. So in the short term, I really appreciate while we've lost that capacity for the actions recommended today, and I really want to thank the fire department for thinking through what could help mitigate and improve the situation. So I'm definitely in favor of this action, and hopefully it will lead to more actions that will lead to more permanent solutions for the lack of ambulance. And again, that for the directors at this table, what it means is it puts way more burden on our volunteer firefighters in terms of what they're being asked to potentially cover in terms of emergencies. So that's a little bit unfair for sure. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the report. After reviewing it, it was really quite troubling and worrisome about what our fire services are having to do because of BC Health crunches or whatever. Like, to me, it's very alarming, and fully supportive of the report and what it is that we're going to do moving forward here. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a no-brainer on this side. So I think we should vote on receipt. Anybody opposed receipt? That carries. And recommendation?
Move.
Seconded?
Yeah.
Any more discussion on the recommendation? We'll vote on that. Anyone opposed? That carries. If I may, I'd like to take a short 7-minute break. Come back. Okay, everyone, welcome back. I convene the Electoral Services Committee. And we're on item number 7, Union Bay Fire Hall funding report from November 1st regarding the potential for an additional allocation of community works funds to address cost escalation on the Union Bay Fire Hall capital project for receipt.
I'll move.
And seconded by Director Arbor.
Yep.
Thank you. And over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelly Broughton, our Manager of Financial Planning, will be introducing this report, and then we can support the discussion to follow. Kelly?
Welcome.
Morning through the CAO to the directors. We do have a bit of a PowerPoint put up. Thank you. At the October EASC meeting, staff presented a report requesting a budget amendment of $2.2 million for the Union Bay Fire Hall capital project. During the resulting discussion, staff were asked to perform some additional analysis and to consider the application of some community works funds to the project. This report addresses the impact of the projected debt servicing expenses highlighted in the October report resulting from this analysis. The majority of the requested $2.2 million budget amendment was to be funded through an increase to long-term debt. Although additional reserve contributions were maximized, the Union Bay Fire Protection District does not have sufficient reserve balances to offset the required shortfall of $2.15 million. The increase to long-term debt put the projected debt ratio at approximately 61% of the overall project costs, which is above the CBRD internal target of 40%. The increased long-term debt was projected to add an additional 35 cents per $1,000 of assessed value to the residential property taxpayer, or $302.28 annually, for a property valued at $865,000. Included in the request to perform additional analysis, staff were also asked to review the existing allocations of community works funds to the South Sewer Extension Project and to determine if decommitting some or all of the funds was possible. Although the South Sewer project is currently in a holding pattern, staff do have the expectation that the project will proceed. The existing commitment of community works funds has been layered into the 2024 to 2028 South Sewer Extension budget included under the Liquid Waste Management Service number 340. As well as the project has received a $30 million grant that included the community works funding within the application. Any change to the stability to the budgeting or forecasting to the South Service project could destabilize the project. Due to this risk factor, staff are not recommending this as an option. However, the way that the community works funds have been layered into the 2024 to 2028 financial plan, there is an opportunity to shift some of the funding from one year to another. The potential for additional funds to be allocated to the Fire Hall project, as well as the existing allocations to the South Sewer project, can be supported through the existing community works funds. As detailed within the staff report, the previous community works fund contract has approximately 1.5 million amongst all of the areas that has not been allocated. These funds, along with the current contract, which will provide just over $1.1 million annually to the CBRD electoral areas, are available for rural projects. Local governments are receiving more pressure from senior levels of government to ensure that the funds are not just allocated, but are also being spent. The Community Works Fund Program Guide states that the funding is intended to prioritize projects that relate to local government assets which have been identified for renewal, enhancement, or construction through a long-term financial infrastructure or asset management plan. The Union Bay Fire Hall project meets both criteria. Within the Community Works Fund Reserve, there remains approximately $123,650 of unallocated Area A Bain Sound funds available.
These funds include the residual balance from the previous 10-year Community Works Fund contract, plus the 2024 allocation from the new 2024 to 2033 contract. As mentioned previously, there is an opportunity to shift the unspent Area A funds from the South Sewer allocation of $449,649 from 2024 out to 2025 to 26. The application of these funds, along with an additional $150,351 from the unallocated Area A Bainsound funds, will provide an additional $600,000 to offset some of the required debt for the fire hall project. The Area A Bainsound Community Funds allocation of just over $258,000 per year will then be shifted back to the Extension South Sewer project for the 2025 and 2026 allocations. If this option is chosen, it will use most of the Area A Bainsound Community Works funds and leave approximately $40,000 available for any new projects through the end of 2026. The full allocation of $258,466 will be available to Area A Bainsound again, starting in 2027. Although option 2 is a viable option, an allocation of $1.5 million in Community Works funds will bring the greatest impact to the Union Bay community. This option, however, does require a departure in the way that the community funds are typically allocated within the Comox Valley Regional District rural areas. But it does resolve the issue of carrying unspent and unallocated funds from previous contracts into the next contract. The allocation does require that the additional funding will be provided from the unallocated areas B and C funds. So the approach is more focused much more on the rural users as a group and not on the users from a specific area. This option only uses the unallocated funding from 2013 to 2024. The 2025 allocations remain intact and will be apportioned according to the existing policy. Although this practice is not the norm, it does have precedence. The directors have allocated additional resources to projects in the areas outside of their immediate electoral areas. The collaborative regional approach can make a difference to project affordability and the overall impact to the residents. Option 3 results in the greatest savings to the Union Bay residents. The application of an additional $1.5 million drops the proposed loan from $3.9 million to $2.4 million, which brings the total project funding from debt to 39%, which is within the internal target maximum debt to equity ratio of 40%. This decrease will result in an overall reduction to the debt servicing requirements to a typical residential property by $115 per year, or 13 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. Option 2, the $600,000 allocation, will provide a reduction of $34 per year. So the next steps. The loan authorization bylaw number 844, 2024 will proceed for consideration of 3 readings and adoption. The participating area approval for the long-term borrowing process will proceed through an alternative approval process in AAP in early 2025. The amendment to the service establishment bylaw number 856, 2001 will also need to be done to increase the max levy. And staff will continue to proceed through the design to obtain Class A cost estimates and to inform the RFP process. This concludes the report, and staff are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Director Arbor's online.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I want to thank staff for their work on this. It's not the report I expected, but it's got a lot of options and a lot of detail that I think the framing of this conversation, it really kicks back to the two directors from Area B or Area C, because the recommended action from staff would definitely move your respective resources into this project. And last month, that was not where I was heading. I was heading into a consideration of South Sewer commitments, and I find on that note, before I pass it back to the directors from Area B and C, I'm not necessarily as alarmed about the potential to redirect some of those funds, but sounds like staff is. It's not like people don't know that there's risks around the South Sewer project right now, and in regards to the 30 million, I 3 weeks ago, I had a long debrief with my MLA again, and there's a good understanding of some of the difficulties we're facing there. I'd also like to mention that a couple of weeks ago at the conference, and I was able to meet one of the program manager at the new Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund that's going to get released next month, and had a chat with Derry and passed on the info. And I think there might be other opportunities as well to pursue funding for that project. But coming back to the fire hall, this is I think I'd just like to hear what the fellow directors think about that approach, and if they think it's viable, then that's amazing. I don't know if you have projects that are sitting in Area B and C for that 2014 to 2024 window that you could prioritize, but so I'll just pass the mic back to the chair.
So just to be clear, the uncommitted balance of $918,176 odd dollars for Area C is including the 2024 capital works, but not the incoming from next year.
That's correct.
Because I've kind of got my eye on that as something to address a previous delegation at this meeting. So I don't know, Director Arbor. You see any silver bullet here? I mean, if we, the areas B and C, I mean, we can certainly help a little bit for the fire hall. I mean, Area B kicked in for the initial Mount Washington, I think about 400,000 to help us out with that. But is that really going to make a lot of difference? That's the question.
Well, I can see if Dr. Hardy has his light on, but no, not yet. I was just going to say, I mean, it'd be hugely appreciated. It's affordability in Area A. We know all the pressures. We're just going to start on that new water extension as well for Royston. Like, there's just costs everywhere right now. So it'd be hugely appreciated for sure, and you'll get a lot of credit for that. But at the same time, if you can't, pursue it, then I would probably go back to my comments from last month around, which is not an option in the staff report, but I would probably retable that because I think there's an opportunity in the short term to make a difference in terms of tax impact to residents of Union Bay, and that fire hall has to happen. It really does, and I think part of my drive for reducing the cost is ensuring a successful AP, ensuring that the community feels that they're getting a really great value for the new fire hall. This is a project that has been started and stalled numerous times, so I'm really trying to align the stars so that it's a go, and that despite the large cost estimate increase that we just saw with an increase in 2 million, that that right away we find a way to mitigate it. So It's really up to area B and C at this point in terms of this staff report. If you do it, I'll be forever grateful. If you don't, then I would like to shift the conversation. Thanks, Chair.
It's a bit to digest, isn't it? I
Yeah,
think
that's
this may be something we could table. But, you know, Area C is already into the South Sewer extension for 739,000.
Can I speak again if I can?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to table it because I want to go on it. What the other part of the staff report is to tack this on to the EAP processes for, that are coming up in January and February. And I do not want to miss that window. Otherwise, we'll get into a risk that other things happen. And who knows, maybe the fire hall gets delayed again. So I would like to solve this today one way or the other. So I guess one question I could ask staff, the report did talk about that some of the community works funds for South Sewer were being expended, but it didn't list how much had been expended out of the noted allocation and how much was, say, anticipated to be expended in the next year and engineering and others. Like I didn't know if we were touching 20% of the community works allocation by 2025, or if we are, expending 90% by 2025 in regards to those South Sewer allocations. So that's a question I would like some clarification on, because I think it would aid into thinking about a potential reallocation to the file.
Not sure if Kelly has answers specific to that at the ready. I will ask Lucy to come to the table as well. Lucy Wichark, our Chief Financial Officer, who might be also able to share a bit of perspective on the options that are presented in the report. And I will note that the staff recommendation is to draw in those unallocated funds from the previous 2014 to 2023 Community Works Fund contract. I think in large part because those funds are intended to provide those significant projects within the regional district. And I think that's what we're seeing with with this particular work. Yes, recognizing it is in Union Bay and in Area A, but certainly recognizing the significant impact of that project to the larger community, to the Comox Valley as a whole. So Lucy, I'm not sure if you wanted to, or Lucy or Kelly, if you had any answers to Director Arbor's specific question there, or if there was any context around the options that are presented in the report.
Thank you. Through the chair to the directors, and I don't have an answer for you from how much we are expecting expenditures to be from the Extension South Sewer project. Kelly may have some thoughts on that. And what maybe I'll just add to your discussion at the moment, and James, from the perspective of that grant, just gave a good summary around that. And as staff have brought forward this recommendation to you, there's a number of things that we're balancing. We have the contract out there, and as administration, we're looked to manage that contract, and to, as we are saying, part of that is ensuring that we have these funds allocated out and that we're able to spend the dollars. We did report to this table before. While there is not a requirement in that grant that you have to have all your funds spent by a certain amount of a certain date after that contract expires, we have been hearing, and of course the intent from the province and the federal government is to just be at a place where the results for this particular grant can be had by the community. So we keep that in mind, and we absolutely keep in mind your principles and the way that you typically move forward with allocating out this grant in that way that's specific to each one of your areas or projects. As we were saying, in Mount Washington is a really good example of that, where you leverage funds across all your area or two of your areas in order to bring that more immediate benefit to those taxpayers. And heard me say before, fire halls and fire apparatus, etc., is very expensive, and it is a very good place to be using these funds. So just moving on to just a few more words on the second option that's in your report and dollars that are associated with that, our self-sewer extension project with that maybe that's a bit of an in-between that you may want to consider. We are taking part of those funds. While we're not going to the place and we're saying that we're decommitting any of those grant dollars that are associated to that fund, what we're doing is from a cash flow perspective is we're moving that to the current contract as opposed to funds coming out of the previous contract. So that frees up that almost $500,000 that's there and allocated out of area A at the moment. That can be supplemented, as we're saying in the report, with the extra $150,000 to bring that to $600,000. And if in each one of your other two areas in B and C, if there's other contributions that you're willing to make, that could be another option as well. It's, you know, as you probably can see here, and we put multiple options out here for you as the table, and it is up to you in the end. But I just, I suppose what I just want to really comment about at this point is that is a place that we are leveraging the fact that we don't need all those dollars on self-sewer right now, and they can move forward and they can be freed up for a project that's more immediate. And as I'm saying, if there's other dollars that each one of area B and C want to allocate to support that project, then that could be something that happens as well. And that is obviously gets us closer to allocating out all of the funds that are there in that previous 10-year contract as well. Hopefully that helps.
If I could follow up with a question to Lucy, and we did
Please.
see a couple of different iterations, and I think one of the earlier staff reports had many options, not just the three presented here. Is it possible to take a hybrid approach where options 2 and 3 are joined, in the sense that the $600,000 as noted in option 2 coming from area A could be supplemented with some funds from areas B and C, which is what is contemplated in option 3. And I know that's going to get a little bit more confusing, but I'm just wondering if there's a way, a bit of a hybrid approach there between options 2 and 3. Mike?
Yes, and I apologize if my answer was really long-winded. I get that this looks complex and a little messy as we're putting these options forward to you. As James has explained, that's what I was trying to get at, is that you can do a combination of option 2 and option 3. Reallocate, move some of the dollars allocated for South Sewer, and also apply additional dollars from area B and area C. And it doesn't have to be the $1.5 million. Any level of relief from debt is going to help.
So just to be clear, we're still going to have to go through an alternate approval process for long-term borrowing, no matter what we do. We can't do a 5-year. Sorry.
That is correct. We will still have to go and get authorization for the debt. And for this particular service, a 5-year, this service can't afford that.
It's not going to happen. So when do we get the check from the feds for next year? That rolls in, well, usually about halfway through the year, doesn't it?
We have already, sorry, Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We've already received one of our payments, which is just over $500,000. And the second payment will come into the new year. Anytime. That's their payment schedule. They pay us across 2 payments every year.
Of course, all our allocations are separate. Every every district has its own based on per capita.
That's correct. It's not, and I believe the formula is not only per capita. There's maybe a few other factors that are in there as well. So not just per capita.
I think I just heard a shoe drop. No, that wasn't it.
I can provide the details over what has been layered into the 2024-2025 2028 financial plan for the South Sewer through Service 340. The liquid waste management plan is 2.5 in 2025 and 2.6 for 2024. The spending to date looks like it's just around $100,000. That was just a very quick look.
Thanks. This was lightly stated. In other words, I couldn't hear fully. So this was the amount.
Yes, sorry, that's been layered into the budget,
Yeah.
into the 2024 to 2028 financial plan. So
Yeah.
in 2025, there's $2.5 million allocated to South Sewer. And in 2024, there was 2.6 million. And it looks like the spending to date is just around $100,000.
So if I may, through the chair, that's $5 million over 2 years. And do we know how much? And we've spent virtually like very little by the sounds of it. But what was this amount? Obviously, it's not all coming from the Community Works Fund because I don't have 5 million of Community Works Fund. So how much of those amounts do we know how much we're going to be assigned, say, to the $30 million provincial grant or otherwise?
I'd have to go back to look at the overall project budget.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to give you a definitive answer right now until I've been able to verify that through the project budget.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kelly. I can appreciate, we want to make sure that if we're providing that information, we want to make sure that we've got it accurately described.
Yeah.
I think I would, I mean, this is for the directors to consider. I think I would come back to the options that are presented there in the report and whether there's a hybrid approach that would be of interest to the committee.
If I may, Chair?
Go ahead, please.
I mean, I think staff is being very creative and solution driven on this, but at the same time, I would like to highlight that the motion we passed at the last ESC, and we had a discussion about motions earlier in this meeting, was to look at a consideration of a relocation of South Sewer monies, right? So if we don't have the full detail on that, you know, and it falls back on the contribution for area B and C, I'm not. I wish we had all the information today around the South Sewer option, because that was the motion that was passed at the last meeting to consider reallocation with all that it might entail. And we, you know, and I know I actually really like that we're thinking outside the box and staff thought outside the box, but I find it hard today to weigh in properly when I don't understand the give and take related to the motion that was passed, which is it's one thing to say that it might annoy the funders or, you know, like the province or otherwise, but I just don't have the information right now around what's the true financial impact on South Sewer if I pull $1 million from there and put it on the fire hall, right? So, and instead what I'm facing with option 2 is really not reallocating the South Sewer, but really, you know, basically spending forward monies that, well, some monies would be the 449. It's pretty complicated, and I still think that, you know, I would love to know what Area B and Area C would like to do on this, whether they are interested in supporting it. For me, I would look at it as this one differently as an IOU in a big way. But at the same time, if you know, if they're interested in some kind of hybrid, that can be okay. My brain is really struggling with this. Is there one question to staff? Is there an opportunity to later on, like, decommit South Sewer? So say that we proceed with some form of arrangement today, and in 6 months from now, you know, I could reassess an additional contribution to the project. I'm sure we could probably do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair, just if I can, just maybe, firstly, one thing that I, wondered, oh, actually, let me answer your last question first. Yes, at a point in the future, you can reallocate to South Sewer. But having said that, I think maybe to what I would want to say first in the development of this recommendation at your table, one thing that we felt as finance is that if this table has commitment to both projects, you can handle both projects within this fund. So it's twofold why we did not include additional information or analysis, decision-making information in your report, is that from that perspective of you can support both projects inside of where the balances are in this fund as is. And secondly, I did go back to that resolution, and the resolution did ask us to come back with additional analysis and options for using community works funds. And I totally understand the discussion around decommitting the funds to the Extension South Sewer project. However, that I did not see that as part of the actual resolution that was passed. So I just, from us, we have lots of conversation around resolutions, and I did at one point have it in the report, and I did go back and check that.
Okay.
And it wasn't a piece of the endorsed resolution.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
good.
no, may I call upon that? I appreciate that. I think now that you've stated it like that, I now recollect that that's how it played out. And in my mind, it's solidified otherwise, but I think I'm in the wrong on this. So yeah, no, thanks for that clarification. It still leaves us with the options and to what extent, area B and C, and maybe to the directors, if I was in your shoes, I'd really think about the projects I currently have on deck. As Lucy said, the need to close out the 2024 contract, and I don't have the pulse on your on your budgets in area B and C, and I assume that staff has done their analysis around what's possible, but yeah, it's at the end of the day, I have to say, like, when you get to a $200 level for a fire hall, like that's huge. Like that's for what the community would get. I think it will de-risk the AP. Everybody will be like, really impressed by our attempt to mitigate their tax bill at a time where that particular community is facing a lot of significant increases.
Can I just make one more comment? And
Certainly, yes.
Potentially as you consider your decision for today, coming back to the projects, and is this committee, do they want to support both projects? Do you want to support additional funds to the fire hall and also support South Sewer? And if you'd like to do that from your allocation that's there in the previous 10-year contract, as is layered right now for South Sewer, one of the options can be that we leave some grant dollars there in order to cover the expected expenditures that are coming forward for South Sewer. And then we can shift the remaining dollars from that overall $1.7 million that's there. Sorry, it's providing feedback. And you can allocate some of this to this fire hall if you want. So what it means is there's no risk as staff is putting forward that we are aligned with our recommendation to not decommit those funds. So there's no risk to that South Sewer project because we're moving that forward. We're moving the funding from a cash flow forward to your new contract. And you also have the ability to support the fire hall. So it's just another way that you can do that. We would go to grant first when we're cash flowing expenditures coming forward from a program like this. I think we have the capabilities to do what we need to do for South Sewer at this point.
Well, I was always taught, when unsure, defer. When in doubt, step out. I'm not comfortable moving ahead on this right now. I think it's something that takes a little more deliberation and a little more exploration. When's the drop dead date on this? It's next month. It's got to be in by the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I know that I see Jake Martins is on the line. He may want to weigh in on the timing around this. The ability to conduct an AAP for the loan authorization bylaw in early 2025 does depend on us submitting the bylaw to the inspector of municipalities very soon. They have a 6 to 8 week turnaround time for approving those loan authorization bylaws, and I think we're up against that timing now, I would say, and that would be needed in order to conduct that AAP in early 2025.
I'd be in favor of having a special ESC meeting before the board.
I
On
think
the 26th or something like that. That would be soon enough.
Well, I think the intent was if the bylaws were given the green light today at the EASC, that we would be taking that for readings tomorrow at the board meeting.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that. Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. That's reasonable feedback from Chair Grieve. But I still want to proceed. So so for me, I would say option 2 only involves area A, as far as I can tell. And so what I would like to do is to move option 2 and reduce the cost burden of the project and allow us to move forward with the AAP. And then over the coming months, maybe we can have more consideration around the alternative options or additional funds that could come from any of the 3 areas. Because, I mean, Lucy has a point that if area B and C can't spend down their funds, at some point, the province and feds will ask questions like, what's the plan? And it is the end of 2024 right now. So, but I would like to move too, because it does start to chip at it. And I think what I heard earlier is it leaves the option open, even though it wouldn't make it on the AAP to the taxpayers, there could still be further reduction in the future, either through reallocation, should the South Sewer project not need the community works funds, and or if area B and C find that they would like to contribute. So yeah, I wouldn't want to defer, because I want to catch the AAP train. I want to get this fire hall built. I want to go to the community and try to get the project done. And too many times I've seen over the years that sometimes when you miss the boat, that's it. It goes away for a while, right?
Well, Director, nobody can argue that you don't advocate for your community. And I think you've got way more plates spinning than any of the rest of us combined. Certainly you look at the resolution status report and it's almost all area A. So I think if you're going to be able to raise on that option, you're going to raise another 600,000, then I think it's entirely reasonable that I could probably put 200,000 in. I don't know if area B would put 200,000 in. This feels a lot like our own rural community grants. That would bring us up to $1 million. If that would be something that would, be substantive enough to make a difference. I'm not speaking for area B, of course, but I'm just throwing it out there as an option, because you're going to have 600 out of that option, and another 400 bring up to $1 million, which would be nothing to sneeze at, even in cold season. Director Hardy?
Thanks. Thanks, Chair. I guess I'm struggling with the options in the report and trying to absorb everything. I mean, we received the report on Friday afternoon. Didn't really get a chance to talk with staff about how these options or recommendations would work with regards to Area B, and I'd like some time to be able to reflect on the report and ask questions to the staff. I'm just wondering if there's room for me to be able to do that.
I would think that a deferral motion would be,
To me,
or
I'd like to
referral motion.
refer.
What about the 25th? That's a Monday before the board at the end of the month, which still gives us time to put it through the meat grinder of the actual full board.
I'd appreciate that time.
Yeah, okay. You made the motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay, I'll second it. So 10 o'clock on the 25th gives us time to meet separately with our CAO and maybe our CFO as well, and get a more complete long range vision. You guys are the money people. I know this all makes sense to you, but okay. So it's on the table. Director, do you want to speak to that?
Well, sadly, the motion's on the table, but just to verify, can I only just speak on time and place on this one? Is that what is happening?
Yeah, you're able to speak broadly. This is a referral motion to a separate meeting.
Okay, right. Yeah, that was clarified last meeting. So thank you. Oh, thank God, because what I was going to say is before we make that decision, I still like option 2 and moving forward. And my question is, I thought there was a comment that the intent was to move this to the board tomorrow in order to not the 26th board, but to the board tomorrow. I do not want to miss the AP train that's leaving the station at the CVRD right now for this project. So just a question to staff, if that 26th deadline, that 26th date actually works from getting on that AAP process.
Staff's intent was, if the EASC approved the recommendations here today, that the bylaws would be put forward for readings at tomorrow's board meeting.
Yeah.
That gives us time to submit the bylaws to the inspector municipalities for their 6 to 8 week turnaround timeframe to approve bylaws that are going to an AAP. I can't give any assurance that a November 26th board meeting date, 25th. I don't have assurance that would be enough time to then be able to coordinate and host that AAP in the early part of 2025.
If I may, Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, then I'd request that we vote down the referral motion and let me proceed just as area A with option 2 and go from there. I think I stated it about 6 times. The time is now to get this project moving. The community is engaged. There's an open house coming up on the fire hall, I think, in Union Bay, that's being planned by our fire chief and staff. I don't want to take steps back on this project. Yeah, so I would love it if we could defeat that and let me proceed with option 2.
Okay, well, I have to agree with Director Hardy that, getting our backs to the wall like this is not good. But then again, as our CFO explained, it doesn't negate moving money around later. So if you frame it that way, this is just to get in the lineup for an AAP, which may very well be turned down anyway. Is it just an AAP for Area A then? Would be for the entire electoral area.
For this particular loan authorization bylaw, it would
Yeah.
be the Union Bay Fire Protection Service that would be subject to that AAP.
So Union Bay would vote on it?
Correct.
So only the catchment area for that?
Correct.
Okay. Director Hardy?
Yeah, thanks. So if I'm understanding correctly, then Director Arbor is suggesting that we just go with option 2. So that leaves $40,000 available for community work fund projects through to the end of 2026. Is that right? From Area A.
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
So that's not impacting Area B with regards to their community work funds. Is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm good with 2 then.
Pardon?
I'm good with option 2 then.
You're good with option 2.
If that's the.
Okay, well, you have a
route
motion on the
director-
floor. We have to defeat it.
Okay.
So all those in favor?
Of defeating? Yeah.
Yes. So that's defeated, and Director, are you gonna make a motion on that then?
Sure. Move option 2.
Second, and then I'd like to speak on it.
Okay, moved and seconded, over to Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. So I think this motion will demonstrate to residents of Union Bay we're trying to do everything to lessen the costs of the project and in relation to other projects, and managing the certainties and risks around different projects as well. And I'm really glad, if the committee can support that today. And in regards to the future, we'll see what happens. For me, that option 2 still has, for those who will watch online in Union Bay, it still has consequences, and we just heard it from staff. And it's not just for Union Bay, it's for Fanny Bay and Royston as well. Like, it reduces the pot of money that we have available for Area A for the next 2 years to almost nothing. So I won't be able to plan projects for a little bit here, but again, prioritizing that fire hall that will benefit the entire Bainstown area is really exciting in the end, and I look forward to go to the community and speak more about it. Thanks.
So if I can interject, I think the motion on the floor now that's been moved and seconded in support of option 2, which is on page 4 of your staff report. It would reflect the same wording as the recommendation number 1, but we'll have to substitute in the proper amount coming from Community Works, which would be, I think, the $600,000. I'm looking
That's
at Lucy for
That's correct.
confirmation.
We'll get it up on the board. So there's no misunderstanding of motions.
Want me to give you the new figures? Yes. And the staff maybe can just confirm. So, oh, so sorry, I didn't hear you, Lisa. Okay. So in the recommendation number 1, that the overall project budget of 6,300,000 with 3,355,000 financed through long-term borrowing at 25 years. And further, that our financial plan for the capital project 1167 in Union Bay Fire Hall. Of course, we still need to increase that by 2,200,000, with funding coming from Community Works funds of 600,000, 50,000 from the Capital Works Reserve 809, and long-term debt $1,550,000. And the rest stands as is. Good. $50,000 stays the same. And then the long-term debt is 1,550,000. Oh, I'm sorry, 1,550,000.
So directors, this recommendation now, recommendation 1 on the floor reflects option 2 in your staff report.
Are we comfortable? Oh,
Chair, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. So this looks good to me. And going back on my comments from 10 minutes ago, I do want to, I think I got a little bit frustrated in this, but it had, on hindsight, it had nothing to do with staff. I think staff had done a really good and creative job and turned the stones on this to understand the options. And I think my frustration is mostly born out of the financial pressure and the dilemmas that we're finding ourselves into on behalf of the residents down in the south. So yeah, again, I just want to thank staff for their work on in 1 month to turn this around.
So who seconded it? Has it been moved yet? It's moved and seconded. Dr. Arbor moved it. I'll second it. Now the quest is to get a successful alternate approval process moving forward. So we're almost there. Director, you have your hand up still? Or is that from before?
I don't mean to have it up. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So that be recommendation 1. Moved and seconded. Anybody opposed? That carries. Now if you go to 2 and 3. Okay, now we're gonna bring up recommendation 2. I need a motion on that.
I'll move to.
Second.
Move second on 2. Any discussion on 2?
If I can, Mr. Chair,
Certainly.
the staff report included a couple of bylaws attached for the for reference during the discussion, and those bylaws would have to be for sure. The loan authorization bylaw will have to be updated to reflect option 2, as you've just walked through. So we will make that happen for tomorrow's board meeting to ensure that it aligns with your option 2 and the motion just previously approved.
Now, because, okay, so this will fall to the whole board, correct?
Loan authorization bylaw, yes.
Yeah. It's not weighted.
It will be weighted.
It will be weighted, yeah, okay. So is there anything we need to change in 2? You say you just add the same loan authorization bylaw, so that's fine. Okay, we don't have a motion for 2? Do we?
Yeah, I think we do.
It's been moved and
We're
seconded.
moved seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, Richard and Daniel. Okay, fine. So we're up to any opposition? That carries. And 3,
I'll move 3.
I'll second.
moved and seconded on 3. Any changes there? 3 readings. Number 1 looks pretty boilerplate. Any discussion on that?
Just share that I appreciated that this one will go through written consent of the director, which is me. But for the community, if they watch this, it's not linked to the borrowing money that will be in the AAP. So this is just for an amendment to the establishment bylaw, just to be clear.
And the participants in the alternate approval process will only be the catchment area for the Union Bay Fire Hall. Okay, so calling for a third and final time. Any opposed to 3? Then that carries as well.
Chair,
Is it dinner?
can I just make one, if you don't
Of
mind?
course.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate all the conversation around these community works funds. It's a really important piece of stable funding that really can help us with getting some of these really important projects through. And I just wanted to call your attention to what our next steps are in bringing forward to this table to determine where's the best place to layer these funds. And last year was the first time we were trying to shift your process a little bit with last year's financial planning process. And the very first report, our item that you addressed when we brought you budget, was to circle into this funds. So our intent is to do the same this coming year. So at that time, and as finance gets that chance to consider all of the projects that are going to be spanned across your 10-year capital plan, we will come back with recommendations to this table on where we are seeing the best use of those funds are. And I think, by doing that, you can have this better comprehensive view of what that means for each one of your individual funds. And also to be able to contemplate, there may be other situations like we were dealing with today where there's an immediate need that's more centralized to one of your areas. So just wanted to remind you and let you know that our intent is the same as last cycle, where we'll bring you that report and those recommendations at the beginning of your deliberation over the 2025 budget.
Thank you, Lucy. As always, you make it crystal clear for us. What'd she say? Okay, I'm going to call a working lunch if we can, and we'll take a few minutes to get our plates and be back here shortly. teleporter. Daniel, I was just saying I was going to teleport you a bowl of chili, but I see you got some already. I'm sure Elon is on it already. He's inventing it as we speak. You ready? Oh, we're good. Okay. Okay, I call this meeting of the Electoral Service Committee back to order. And we are on that Langley Lake Dam update. So we have staff here and over to CEO for introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kaylee Lemert, our engineering analyst, will be introducing the staff report, and we'll be able to support any discussion that the directors might have. So Kaylee, over to you.
Thank you through the CEO to the chair and directors. This staff report is providing an update on Langley Lake Dam. In accordance with the dam safety regulations, staff have worked with a consultant to complete a professional review of consequence classification of Langley Lake Dam, which has historically been rated as significant. The analysis shows that due to the impacts on Island Highway 19A and the loss of water supply for Union Bay, the consequence classification has been upgraded from significant to high. While temporary populations could be in the inundation zone, given the model flow depths and velocities, it's estimated that there would be a low potential for loss of life. If this were in the unlikely situation, this would be to occur. The increase in rating has several implications, but most notably, we are required to complete a dam safety review by 2026. Future development or assessment of the inundation area could further escalate the dam consequence, but this would be a relatively minor impacts operational efforts. A distribution list has been prepared to forward the staff report and the findings of the dam breach analysis to affected properties and owners of infrastructure at risk. In addition to CVRD response planning, local businesses and facilities are responsible for developing their own business continuity plans and/or emergency response plans. Comox Valley Emergency Management offers emergency preparedness materials and info stations for households and neighborhoods in the region. Thank you. That's all from me, but happy to answer any questions.
Director Robert.
Wow, that was the quickest summary of a 250-page report I heard. It was great.
We're going to keep them on.
Yeah, I went through the report this weekend, and I found it really fascinating, actually. So many things that to think about, and in general, I think we know the dam is in fairly good shape. But looking at the risks around failure and how to improve over time, the chances of failure not happening is really important. And it was also interesting, all the work that's been done around the flooding potential, which obviously I was kind of stunned by, with fast moving water potentially going a meter up above Island Highway 19A, and then flooding into the community hall area and across the street to the new development. So I think the report does mention that with new development, it could increase the risk profile of the dam as well. So yeah, there was a lot to absorb. I'll just and I guess we'll get a report later on around. It was nice to hear that in the short term, we've got the monies to cover what needs to be done, like this mention of for the brushing, different things, but that we would probably see a future report that maybe brings more substantive items for cost. But I did have a question, which is the report talks a lot about flooding risk, but and at the dam level about mitigation and good maintenance and etc. But it doesn't talk about mitigation downstream. And I know what I'm going to say, kind of stacks against all the different government bodies and riparian area zones and all that. But when you think about nature-based solution, I kept thinking about reducing the risk, which is all at the bottom of the creek near Highway 19A. And now we have the nature park that spans a good portion of Hart Creek. And I kept thinking, like, is there a nature-based solution that we can help solve with climate trends, multiple problems at once, i.e., the creek doesn't have as much water in the summer as it used to have. So is there a way that, and maybe that's a question to our engineers, but is there projects out there where we could multi-solve in the sense of improving salmon habitat through pools, retention, slowing down the flooding risk through those same pools, and basically doing slowly over time some activities that could reduce the flooding risk lower down in the river, which is where most of the problem is identified, and also potentially helping other values that we're trying to protect, such as salmon.
That's a simple
One
one.
thing about that for a bit. I think fortunately the placement of, I can at least say this, fortunately the placement of the bridge abutments attenuates some of the higher flows and kind of reduces the amount of potential risk through that. But I think a large part of this is kind of the sunny day dam failure situation where you've got normal operating level of the dam, and the breach is based off of the flow that's based off of that one particular event. Not sure, but that's more like upstream impacts, not necessarily downstream. And I think if you, yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to answer the question. Maybe Mark has something to say.
I see Mark Rutten's come to the table as well, and maybe you would have some perspective on that. I think all I would add before that is that the answer to your question, Director Arbor, is maybe. A lot of it's going to depend on who owns the land, who's got jurisdiction, what sort of resources and capacity do they have, and then what makes good sense in terms of investing in whether that be nature-based solutions or aligning different priorities, whether they be social or environmentally based or business focused. So it's a maybe kind of an answer. Mark, did you want to add more?
Yeah, I just through the CAO, through the chair, just supporting what James said. There likely are some opportunities, but it would take additional study work to kind of identify those and determine what they are. Just anecdotally, a large part of this stream is quite steep and within a ravine, so I'm not sure how many opportunities there are there, but like you said, in the lower lying areas, there could be some. But it would take some study work to determine what those are, what they look like, and then, like James said, where they're located, whose land it's on, and whether that opportunity can be exploited or not.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And what's interesting to me is it feels like the penalties for going up in classifications are not terrible. Like to go right now, we're moving from significant to high, but they're still like super high and extreme, which could happen if new development happen in the in downstream. But then I was reading the penalty is all of a sudden we just have to file a report like every 7 years rather than 10 years. So there's not going to be a big incentive to do kind of any kind of long-term thinking about creek health and flow and investment, like even a berm on the far side of the baseball field that could help divert. Like, who would do those studies? It feels like nobody has an incentive to do those studies. So is this whole thing just a paper exercise, or it's not really going to change our practices from the looks of it, but we have a better understanding of risk, and then when it happens, we can just say, "Oh, actually, our model held up. It flooded just as we anticipated." Is that where we're heading with this report?
I think I can speak to that. So I mean, I think by being compelled to do the dam safety review, there'll be a more thorough investigation on the current maintenance and design capabilities that the dam has. I think that there will be kind of more additional, and then to do that every 7 years will come at some cost for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyways, I found it really interesting. I'm glad the Ministry of Forests kind of pushed us into it. I wish they were doing the same instead of just looking at them and looking at watershed risks. So that's my message back to the Ministry of Forests. But yeah, that's good for today. Thank you for the work.
Okay. Yeah, the visuals of what went on in Spain are going around in my head.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments or questions, directors? Oh, we're good. Okay, so we did not actually move this for receipt, so I'll do that now.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Anybody opposed receipt? That carries. Now into the Union Bay Water Conservation Bylaw. Report from October 25th regarding the new water conservation bylaw that is consistent with those in place on other Comox Valley Region District water services. For receipt.
So moved.
Okay. And over to CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce Daryl Warnock, our water wastewater analyst, who will be introducing the staff report. I think, Daryl, this is your first time at this table, I believe.
That is correct.
Well, welcome to the Electoral Area Services Committee. And yeah, I'll just turn the microphone over to you, and then we'll be able to support the discussion with the directors to follow.
Welcome, Daryl.
Thank you. So I'm just here to make the recommendation that we repeal and replace the current Union Bay Water Conservation Bylaw. As you're aware, in 2021, the CVRD overtook the Union Bay Improvement District, but that also included overtaking their bylaws as well. The primary goal that we're looking to achieve is by adopting a new water conservation bylaw, is just to bring consistency and align this bylaw with language and protocol with all the other CVRD water conservation bylaws. Some examples of that, we would like to implement predetermined dates for when stage 1 and stage 2 water restrictions will take effect. That'll be May 1st and July 1st, respectively. And as defined by the Union Bay Water Master Plan, we've included language that explains how the water levels in Langley Lake are determined. Again, those water levels can be used to implement the watering restrictions. And in January, in the billing cycle, we like to include information inserts just to communicate the changes to the residents of Union Bay. And finally, last but not least, we will be required to amend the municipal ticketing bylaw and the adjudication bylaw, simply to include the rates for the tickable violations that relate to the water conservation bylaw. I'll open that floor to questions.
We got some questions from Director Arbor.
Yeah, no question. I just thought I'd say I'm good with it. I think it helps. Regionally, what we've talked about is to have more consistent messaging and procedure for the public and in different areas. And I think having the fixed dates will be a good thing. in alignment with other places. So yeah, I think I don't have concerns on this one. Thanks.
Thank you. And I have no questions, Director. No. So yeah, thanks very much for this report. And we're going to vote on receipt. Anybody opposed to receipt? Okay, and the recommendation?
Move recommendation.
Second.
Second on the recommendation. Any discussion on the recommendation? Not seeing any, I'll call a question on the recommendation. Anybody opposed? That also carries. And off to the Union Bay Local Service Area Development Cost Charge Study Recommendations. Report for receipt.
Receipt.
Second. And CO.
Thank you, and back over to Kaylee for introducing, I believe, this and the next couple of reports as well here. So
Okay.
Kaylee, over to you.
Thank you. Through the CEO, through to the chair. So just a quick reminder on what DCCs and CICCs are. Essentially, these are tools available through us through the Local Government Act that charge developers on the costs related to servicing their developments. For DCCs, the costs are charged at building permit and or subdivision. And or subdivision. The CICCs, the costs are charged once the property is brought into the service. So for anticipated growth and density, most of the projected growth is attributed to the build out of Union Bay Estates, KFN's District Lot 7 and Upper Island Development District Lot 13. We used a 20-year timeline, which is consistent with the Water Master Plan, but we will be reviewing on how development is occurring and adjusting the rates accordingly in minor updates as required. The number of persons per dwelling is a key input into the differences between each type of residential development. We used Stats Canada information for Union Bay and made adjustments based off of the allowances for secondary suites and information from developers' proposals were available. There are a number of projects that are required to respond to the anticipated growth, and we have developed cost estimates for each of these projects. The existing water treatment plant, which was recently constructed and is still DCC eligible. While it primarily benefits existing users, it also provides some benefit to developers. In this case, we reviewed and adjusted the benefit factor, which is used to proportion project costs between existing users, 80%, and developers, 20%. The municipal assist factor is also used to assist development, given the significant financial burden on existing users for replacing existing infrastructure and financing the debt of the water treatment plant. A relatively low assist factor of 1% is proposed. All of this highlighted project costs are spread out over anticipated future population. Different rates for each development type was determined using the average number of people per type of development. The definitions for low, medium, and high residential were based using language consistent with the CVRD zoning bylaw. Low density residential means a single detached dwelling, which may contain one additional dwelling unit in the form of an attached secondary suite. Medium density residential means a multi-residential dwelling, except apartments, duplex dwelling, single detached secondary dwellings, and a detached tourist accommodation dwellings, i.e. cabins with direct access to the outside. High density residential means a building which contains multiple dwelling units accessible by a common hallway or corridor and shared entrance facilities, including apartment buildings, and attached tourist accommodation units, i.e. hotels. For commercial, institutional, and industrial land uses, equivalent populations per square meter were established based on assumed water use. Commercial and institutional uses were considered to have a similar impact, whereas industrial uses are assumed to have half the impact of those uses. This was based on populations per area consistent with other municipalities' urban systems has worked with. So a key message here is that increases will primarily impact developers and will prevent those required costs from being downloaded on existing users. Once we post in building links and send out direct notifications to key developers, we'll hold an information session. Once we have adopted the bylaws and updated rates, we'll distribute information to the general public and our bill staffers. That's all from me, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks very much. Any questions from, there's a hand up from Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of questions on this one. So, I mean, on high level, the bylaw hasn't been updated since 2010 around the rates. And over 14 years, you know, it seems like annualized, it's kind of reasonable. Would have been nice to have that annual increase rather than all at once. My question is, has this have these rates been discussed with? Because the report does say most of it would apply to the Union Bay Estates development in terms of growth. So have these rates been discussed with the developer, and what kind of feedback did we obtain on that?
I don't.
Mark, I might pass that one over to you about discussions with UBE, sorry.
Yeah, through the CAO and through the chair. So the discussion is really starting now, Director Arbor. This report has been referred to Union Bay Estates and to some other developers in the area. So they're becoming aware of these rates now. The proposed bylaw does include a grace period for in-stream applications. So that would apply to subdivision or so to rezonings that are, wait a minute, rezonings? It's subdivisions. Yeah. Rezonings and subdivision, not rezoning, sorry. Apply to subdivisions that are in stream or in process. So they've been, those are a grace period of 1 year is applied to those. Yeah, leave it at that for now.
Yeah, thanks for the background. It's I would have liked to have a little more information, but are we basically passing this today, or there's going to be more consultation? I think we're looking to proceed with the bylaws today, right? Or that's one option. The option two, if I may, is to not proceed with the new bylaws at this time. So what would be the impact of not proceeding? There you go. I'll just reframe it that way.
Yeah, sorry, I was just waiting for my mic to come on. The intent would be to take the bylaws through first, second, and third reading now, not go for adoption and complete that consultation with the development community prior to sending these bylaws for inspector of municipality approval. So there's a bit of process there before we'd be bringing these forward for fourth and final adoption. That being said, you know, we're just, you know, conscious of the costs and wanting to progress these. But if you wanted some more time, we could do that. We could also, you know, bring back some of that information we hear from developers at that kind of information session.
Yeah. Okay. If I may, Chair. To me, there's a bit of disconnect with the timing of this one and where we currently are with the project and the risks associated with it, as we've discussed earlier today. But if this allows us to pass these bylaws, and I also understand, of course, that it doesn't only apply to the Union Bay Estates project, and again, the annualized rate is not too bad to me in terms of the 14-year difference. So yeah, we can pass 1, 2, or 3, but I would like that there be some feedback to this committee around the feedback from the development community around it. Thank you.
I can just get for clarity then. I think we can make a note of that to bring back a subsequent report after that engagement with the community to the EASC before the bylaws go forward for adoption.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Director Hardy, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think earlier in the presentation, maybe it was slide 3 of 6. There's I guess the determination there of anticipated growth of use of water in the Union Bay area. And if I understood correctly, I thought that the Union Bay Estates was included in that growth, and that the Comox First Nation treaty settlement lands were taken into consideration of that growth. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so we're only looking at a 20-year period.
Yeah.
So, that's not the full growth potential of the area, but.
So I guess where I'm going with this is understanding that obviously Comox, hopefully if they ratify their treaty and they move forward and start developing their lands down the Union Bay, obviously they would pay their fair contribution, I would assume, for the DCCs. But I guess where I'm going with this is our previous conversation revolving around the Union Bay Fire Hall and whether or not that 20-year or 25-year loan process took into consideration of the growth of Union Bay Estates and maybe Comox First Nation treaty settlement lands when looking at who's paying into that loan for the fire hall down the road. So I'm just wondering if that's a fair question to ask or not. Thanks.
If I can, Director, is your question around the specifically around the Union Bay Fire Hall project and who's contributing towards the loan repayment?
Yeah.
So in that case, the loan repayment would fall to the Union Bay Fire Protection Service property owners, and it would be through their requisition that we would collect those funds and then be able to repay that loan. And of course, that's dependent on the boundaries of the Union Bay Fire Protection Service and whatever kind of development and growth happens within that boundary.
So just trying to understand those two processes and how KFM would contribute to. Sorry, yeah. So just in my own little brain trying to understand that process with regards to how KFM would contribute or the forecasting down the road here with regards to growth and then through that DCC cost, here's what it's going to be. It includes KFM, but if I'm understanding correctly right now, with regards to the fire department, that process isn't incorporated or incorporated into today's process, I guess, right now. Is that right?
The DCCs in front of the committee right now are only on the water service. And again, will reflect the development within the Union Bay Water Service area. And over time, whatever growth opportunities or whatever the boundary is of that service over time.
Yeah, can I?
Director Auger?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, and Dr. Hardy is right. It would be good, maybe in the future, to have a report on what the thinking is around the fire hall. Currently, the service area does not include the future treaty lands, but it could. But in regards to water, I just want to clarify that for the treaty lands, the water is currently not set to come from the Union Bay service. I believe it's set to come from the Royston service, unless I'm mistaken on that. So I think I don't want to mix the two things together, and maybe staff can clarify if my assumption is correct here.
Yeah, two parts. The primary treaty lands around Sage Hills, that's the Water South Extension project which would be serviced from the Comox Valley water system through Royston and beyond. And then District Lot 7 is serviced through Union Bay. That's right.
That's my understanding as well. So just as a follow-up for District Lot 7, they would be, I assume, aren't they, isn't District Lot 7 already considered part of the water service? I thought it might be, so then that would say that they are included in the projections.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Everybody's in agreement? Any more discussion on that? We have received a report. All in favor? Yeah, see, everybody's paying attention. And the recommendation, please.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, on the recommendation. Any further discussion there? Then I'll call the question on that. Any opposed? Then that carries. And Graham Lake Budget Amendment Report from 2020, October 25 regarding budget amendment to complete a required professional consequence classification of the Graham Lake Dam for receipt. Move a second on receipt and back over to Kaylin, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. As mentioned in the March 2024 staff report, results resulting from an audit of the dam from a dam safety officer, the CVRD must complete a professional review of the consequence classification for Graham Lake Dam. Over the past few months, staff have compiled and completed a review of the available information related to completing a high-level, lower-cost inundation analysis to reduce the amount of effort required by an external consultant to complete review. Assuming a survey is not required, staff are estimating that this work would still cost around $10,000, largely due to the required site visit. And so just to be clear, so this is a high-level review, so it's similar to what was completed at Langley Lake, except for without detailed modeling. It would be a higher level review of downstream impacts. That's all from me, but happy to answer any questions.
He's willing to answer any damn questions.
I'm good on that one, Chair. Thanks.
We're okay on that one. Okay, it's probably the least of the worries, Daniel. Okay, so on receipt of report, anyone opposed? That carries. And the recommendation attached, should we move that?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion on that? Call the question. Any opposed? Also carries. Now this moves us to new business. One more. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. The Graham Lake parcel tax and fees charges report for receipt.
Move receipt.
Okay, and back over to our professional panel over there.
Thank you. At the November 2023 ESC meeting, staff were directed to update the parcel tax and user rate for 2024, consistent with the recommended 15-year rate increase scenario. In October, staff gave an update to residents via direct mail on the successful amalgamation and anticipated rates for 2025. This increases the minimum required to ensure the long-term viability of the service to pay not only for water treatment, but also eventual replacement of all the aging infrastructure. Multiple year water rate increases built into the bylaw reflecting the 15-year rate increase in a manner consistent with our other water services will be brought forward for approval once the treatment technology is selected next year. That's all for me, but happy to answer any questions.
So any questions on that? Director Harper?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, this is as per what we looked at last year, so I will be okay with moving this, but I do want to speak because, again, this meeting will be watched by more than people in the room here. It has been a very frictious few months here around our project and some of the community members, and there's a lot of I mean, for some community members, there's still some distrust around our approach. And all I'll say is that, we have vacillated around the options a little bit over the last year. And I think I'm not surprised that that's being felt in the community. So, of course, people will ask, why are we having these increases if we decide to not have a project? And I'll reiterate the same thing that I said last year. Then some of those cost increases, if the project got delayed or anything like that, we could always assign it towards our reserve and water pipe replacement. right? So, but at the same time, we're trying to walk on a path of upgrading the system. What that ultimate solution will be, we don't know yet, but hopefully we will have something more complete to present to the community in the next few months. I don't know if staff wants to comment on when that might be, but I know that, yeah, it's been a tough few months in terms of community engagement with me particularly. Thanks.
I mean, I could comment, well, we're still working through the piloting process that has been started. But we won't be in a position where we're ready to make any significant decisions until next year.
Yeah, this is one of the more complex files for sure, but rest assured, I think we're all working together on this one. I remember going over for a meeting and we were very well supported with all the directors there. And I know there's always some mistrust, and I've actually read some of those emails, Daniel. So I do think that in the end, we're trying to do what's best for the community, and it's not easy. There's no easy answers here. So we're doing what we can, and hopefully we'll get a appropriate outcome as time goes by. Any other comments or questions? No, okay. So on the receipt piece there, anybody opposed to receipt? That carries. And recommendation?
So moved.
Second. We have a second on the recommendation. Any more discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed to the recommendation? That carries. And then we move on to new business. And it's actually this Director Grieve has written a letter to Chair Grieve on this one. That's kind of unusual, but I had to bring this forward because I think it bears some kind of recognition that we do have funding available. This was evident, and I think borne out by Director Hardy, who attended a meeting with the Ministry of Ag and Food, as well as the chair of the ALC. And it seemed to me by the tenor of the meeting that there's some granting opportunities out there for water capture and storage that was sitting on the table. And they were curious as to why the Comox Valley Region District had not applied. I don't know if Director Hardy was thinking the same as I was, but it seemed to me that somewhere there's some money that was a possible earmark for the valley, potentially. So I did a little more research, and I've talked. I think I've sent this letter around, but I also have a letter from our district agrologist from the ministry, who has suggested a couple of intakes of agricultural water infrastructure program stream number 3. There's a 50% match up to 200K for assessments, engineering studies and plans, etc. They could pay up to 1.2% of 400K project. There's also another one that's coming up, an intake between November 12th to 11th of December. That's basically about study money as well. So I don't know. I did talk to our CAO, and I'm sure he's going to explain the reasons why we just don't have we're sort of stretched on capacity right now. It's not the right time to do it. But this letter, I basically said, I'd really like to put our foot in the door on this. And even if we have to employ a third party to write for the grant funding. I can ask actually Director Hardy if you got the same impression I did. I just had the impression that, it's not a given, but there was definitely, the Comox Valley was definitely in mind at that meeting for some money for this, for agricultural water storage and retention. So my question is, and my ask is, I guess, that can we not send some kind of an application in if it's not too labor intensive, or can we get a third party? And do we have funding up for that where we can at least get an application for a lot of it for study money, so it would actually fit in well once the ag plan comes forward. So as I say, that's my feeling is quite strong that that there is a process there, and it's open to the regional district. And the question is, why haven't we applied? So I'll turn it over to the CEO. But if there's any way at all that we can squeeze a little bit of staff time, at least to submit one or both of the applications for the programs.
So I attended that meeting with you and Director Hardy at the UBCM convention with the Minister of Agriculture and Food. And yes, there was some reference to grant opportunities and some curiosity around the CVRD making an application. The CVRD has been in the midst of its agriculture plan work for many, many months, and a report on that ag plan is expected to the board very, very soon. Our impression of that or perspective would be that when that ag plan is presented, it can talk about the role that the CVRD can undertake in not just agricultural planning, but also in whether that be water for agricultural purposes and whatever other study work and investments could be made around that work. Currently, the CVRD does not have a agricultural service. It does not have a water retention and storage for agriculture function of any kind. So it's not clear to me what an application to these grant funders could result in the sense that we don't have a vehicle or a means of receiving those grant opportunities and making use of them when it comes to infrastructure, water retention and storage, that sort of thing. That could be an outcome of the ag plan if the board determines that, or the Electoral Area Services Committee determines that there is a role to play for the CVRD in the ag sector. But at this stage, we don't have that kind of a service. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I certainly indicated that previously, and I'm really interested to see the ag plan and to see what the Electoral Area Services Committee and the board want to do with respect to an agricultural service, which we feel could be the right means or the right vehicle for this kind of grant application, this kind of study work, this kind of responsibility going forward.
Well, as Director Harbour said earlier, we do have a feasibility study money to at least apply. And a lot of times the actual funding has quite a long time before you actually have to show tangible results on it. By that time, we would probably have our ag plan in place. I guess it's not the only bus that's coming along, but we've missed enough buses so far. I think Director Hardy's next.
I think Director Harbour might be.
Is he? Okay. Director Harbour, you want to go first?
Thanks for the letter to yourself and to the committee. That must be funny to write to yourself. I just have a question either for you, Chair Grieve, or for staff. Like in a situation like we are, so an opportunity is identified. It sounds like there's interest in it. I mean, for something like that, depending on it's something that's been around. So does the application have to come from the regional government, or can we have another institutions, say the Farmers Institute or otherwise, agree to be the delivery agent and for us to simply sponsor through the application. Is that an option here if our trouble is that we don't have a home or staff capacity to do the work? Could we, because we've done that in other instances in the past to just, in fact, I think I did one of those a couple of months ago with a Hornby or Denman group for something else. And that's something that the CVRD usually doesn't have too much of a problem doing. So is that an option in this particular case to have somebody run the work, but for the CVRD to be sponsoring it through our general, I think usually we use the general admin function for something like that.
I think it always depends on the grant itself. And I think in this case, there is opportunity for other organizations, including private sector, to make application to some of these funds. So I think that is an opportunity. Anytime the CVRD plays that flow through role, it's always more than just a simple flow through. So we do always want to be mindful of what obligations we're taking on in terms of the application itself or reporting, and that's part of our analysis to understand what role we're taking on. But I think in this case, yes, I think there is opportunity for other parties to make application.
Director Hardy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yes, I did attend that meeting with the Minister of Agriculture back in September when we were over for the UBCM. And I think there was great dialogue during that 15 minutes with regards to opportunities for the Comox Valley Regional District to move forward on some funding applications. And long story short, we were encouraged to make some submissions. And it was really kind of contemplating what kind of a project we could pursue, being that we were still waiting for the draft agriculture plan to come to its fruition. But I think it's also important, very important, that there have been a number of interim reports, phase 2 reports regarding some of the main goals and objectives of that agriculture plan. So to me, I guess I'm struggling a bit with, well, we can't move forward until the agriculture plan's been completed and some type of an agriculture service plan is put in place. Like right now, we should be developing that capacity while we're waiting for the plan to come on. But long story short, again, a project to me that was put forward to the province and they were nodding their heads in agreement, especially Mrs. Dyson, the chair of the Agricultural Land Commission, was the fact that the Wolf Lake Dam is basically in pieces right now. And DFO tried to patch a little bit of it up in 2023, which enabled, some reasonable flows to come down Headquarters Creek and help out the local farmers this year. But they still, DFO, of course, is the lead institution with regards to that Wolf Lake Dam. So going back to Director Harber's comments with regards to, there's some other institutions that we could collaborate on with regards to some projects. To me, this is a perfect example of going after that funding with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. That's going to directly impact, in a good way, our agriculture sector here in the Comox Valley. So to me, I don't think we should be sitting on our hands waiting for the agriculture plan to be completed. I think right now we should be moving forward on grant opportunities, knowing the fact that we are going to have an agriculture plan. And a lot of these items that we're talking about in the agriculture plan fall under some of these grant opportunities that are available to us right now through the province. So those would just be some of my comments there, Chair. I'd be in support of us moving forward. And like you said, if it means finding somebody outside of the CVRD right now to help us out with those grant applications and taking the lead on some of these projects, so be it. Let's look at it. I mean, we brought people from outside the CVRD to help develop the agriculture plan. So what's stopping us from having a third party come in and help us out with regards to pursuing some grant opportunities? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Director. And Director Harber?
Oh, I didn't mean to have my hand up, but I do want to reflect. I was going to let you go next if you were ready, Dr. Gray, but I can keep talking.
No, it's just music to my ears to hear Director
Oh.
Hardy actually formulating my thoughts too. So
Yeah, so yeah, I get where staff is coming from, and that's this year especially, we seem to be hearing a lot about our capacity at the CVRD, more so than in the past. But maybe the onus is a little bit on the directors, maybe to see if, first of all, because what I'm hearing is staff is not really going to probably do that work to find a partner organization. Like if we had somebody that wanted to take the lead on the application and we can be supportive, that seems to be the right route. Unless Chair Grieve wants to put a motion forward that we apply to that fund. But I would say that I agree with Dr. Hardy. Like, even though we don't have a good agricultural service, we have made steps towards that consideration. We have worked on an agricultural plan. And the worst thing that can happen at any government is that you just end up with plans and studies, right? And this is, to me, an opportunity to perhaps do something concrete that would actually get buy-in to the plan and perhaps with the directors for longer term collaboration. And as you said, like water, we know is going to be central to the agricultural plan once we see the final version. Like we know that already. So it's not like this is outside the scope. And then further, I wasn't there, but there was this meeting with the top echelons and some understanding that an application would be welcome. Like those are, you want to steward those relationship and act on them. Otherwise, why are we taking meetings at UBCM, right? It's great when meetings lead to action. I'll just say that, right? And if there's a tangible opportunity that was raised by them, I think it'd be nice to find a way to respond to it and for us to get ourselves in the game. Yeah, thanks.
and Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And again, it's no disrespect towards our staff, and I understand from previous board meetings. I know our staff has a very busy work plan, and where I was going with regards to bringing in a third party was, again, understanding that if our staff are overwhelmed with a lot of big projects and the work plan, that again, we explore the avenue of bringing in a third party, somebody else to help us move forward on this initiative. Because again, like I said earlier, the agriculture sector is a priority for the Comox Valley Regional District as well. And I think a priority for us moving forward is to ensure that the agriculture sector is being worked with from the CVRD and supported from the CVRD. So those are just some of my comments there. I didn't want to diminish or devalue the hard work of our staff from the CVRD. Thanks.
No, I would definitely echo that. We have fabulous staff down here at the Comox Valley Regional District, and it's proven every single month. But I would entertain a motion that we do at least a cursory report on this, look into it, and find out what the criteria really are. And I can work on exploring some opportunities with, say, the Comox Valley Farmers Institute to see if there's some capacity there to take on some of the grant writing if a third party is allowed. But if we can, again, I don't ask for a 102-page report. I just would like to get, maybe a 2-pager or something to come back at the next meeting and to see if there's any way at all we can fandangle this thing, because I do think, and I agree that with Director Hardy that the feeling I got was that the regional district standing in line, and they're fully expecting us to, in fact, they're asking why we haven't applied for this. So, and I do agree that that water is going to be a huge piece of the agricultural plan, was a huge piece of our future in general. So, let's just get a cursory look of what it take to send off an application. One, has a stream that ends on, December the 11th. That's a bit quick, but if we can, yeah, just so our next meeting is what, the 6th, you say? The 9th. That's pretty quick. Okay, if we can get a report back on the 9th, and I can do a little exploratory work on my own. Good, Hardy?
Thanks, Chair. And just quickly going back through my emails, I know September the 3rd, I'm sure a number of us are aware that the Solon River Watershed Working Group has been, we're meeting, I think, every 2 weeks throughout the summer, again, just monitoring the Solon River and activities there. And of course, the Wolf Lake Dam was a constant conversation during those working group meetings. And just looking in attendance, we had the Minister of Agriculture and Food, Minister of Waterlands Resource. We had Foster Richardson as a water management consultant. We had Corey Tryon from Waterlands Resources. And then we had folks from DFO. And there were continuous updates on the Wolf Lake levels. And again, looking at different options down the road with regards to how do we increase, if not maintain, those water levels during drought periods. So I think there's a number of different agencies at the CVRD. You know, I attend those meetings on as the Area B director. I'm not so sure if there is anybody else from the CVRD that attended those meetings or not, or received the minutes from those various meetings.
I don't.
But again, Wolf Lake was a continuous conversation piece with regards to those working groups. And like I said, going back to the conversations with Mrs. Dyson from the Agricultural Land Commission, you know, she did seem to think that some of these grant dollars that we could put in for would help benefit the Wolf Lake Dam. And again, if we were working with other agencies such as DFO and other BC agencies, that would, those would be very helpful with regards to us moving forward. So we really just need to find a grant person to help us out, I think. And then again, a project director down the road, and maybe that's something where DFO can help us out, is if we pursue the funding, that maybe they'll operate or run the program for us. So that would hopefully detract from any serious CVRD staff time. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any more discussion? So do I have a seconder for my motion? The staff prepare a cursory report for December 9th regarding programs and grant funding available, I guess from the Ministry of Ag, to address community water retention and storage for agriculture in the Comox, or the Solon River watershed. Want to add anything to that, Richard? That's okay. Okay. So you're okay to second it?
Yep.
Okay. Any more discussion? Thanks very much. Call the question. Anyone opposed? That carries. Now, while we're under new business, I think there's we want to put something in there to bring some comfort to the Macaulay Road Residents Association. You had some thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, just move that we receive a report at the December meeting on the Macaulay access. What do you want to call it?
Using the one spot trail.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
One spot trail.
That just
access. Yeah.
That formalizes the timeline from our CAO, and in regards to the November thing, I think I'll bring that up when the minutes from that meeting come up, maybe at the board or something like that.
Just on that point, Director Robert, the minutes from October 7th EASC, I believe they've already been received at a board meeting.
Oh, we did already? Okay.
They were, yeah, so there would not be another point where those minutes would come back to prompt you to make any kind of a subsequent resolution.
Oh, gotcha. They've been adopted is what you're saying?
Yeah, they were.
Oh, okay. So I missed that this morning. So, okay, well, then we'll just, this was mostly a point by the delegation. I think we can communicate back to them. Okay, thanks. So I'll just move the motion for the December public meeting to receive the report.
Do you want to put progress in there? Because it will be an ongoing progress. So regards to progress, force requests or something like that.
Call it a progress report. Oh, nice. You've got it on screen.
Because there's going to obviously be no outcome at that point.
Yeah, that's
so
good
enough. Okay. I'm sure they're watching with keen interest right now, so better proofread that.
The staff provide.
The staff provide a report at the December EASC in regards to the progress of the request from the delegation of November 4th, 2024, from Catherine Davison, from Marana, around the connection from Macaulay Road, connection from Macaulay Road through the One Spot Trail for community access. Or community, community.
And emergency access, I would say.
Emergency access, community emergency access. That's perfect. I'll second it. Here we go. And any more discussion? Seeing none, call a question. Anyone opposed? That carries. And I think that brings us to the end of a lovely day. It is not lovely out there, actually. Who would have thought this morning?
Move to go in camera, anyways.
Move to go on camera. Seconded by Hardy. We will now go into camera.